Ducky. Welcome back to my channel. I have a special guest in today's video. A few weeks ago I did a video, I think it was a vlog, and I mentioned that we have another bird, and I said that he didn't exactly have the happiest backstory, and I asked you guys if you wanted to hear kind of how we saved him, and a lot of you said yes. I'm out of breath. I just ran down there to get him. So I thought I would film a video today telling you guys kind of about Ducky, how we came to get him, his backstory, and really he just pooed on my notes, but that's okay. Kind of where he's come from, his very humble beginnings. He's trying to figure out now where he wants to fly. His wings are clipped for now, so he can't get very far. But this is Ducky, and I won't have him for the whole video because he gets kind of antsy, but I thought I would at least have him make a little cameo in the beginning to give you all a visual aid of him. So basically, if you have followed my channel for a while, you know that my oldest daughter has a parakeet. He is basically her bird. She paid for him. He stays in her room, and even though I like to tease her and say that he's mine, he's really hers, and he's honestly kind of like a support animal for her. She loves him and gets a lot of joy from him. Are you gonna sing? So it was not on our radar to get another bird. One of the things we like to do as a family periodically just for fun is to go to local pet stores and look around, you know, pet things and ooh and ah over stuff. So for my oldest daughter's birthday last year, which is in February, we had gone to this local pet store, and we had seen this little bird kind of sitting off on its own, really didn't think a whole lot about it, and left, and time went on and nothing else was said about that bird. So fast forward, what are you doing? Fast forward about 6 or 7 months, we went back to that same pet store and really noticed that this bird, which was the one we had seen in February, was still sitting in the same place he was. He was separated from all the other birds. He was in this little tiny cage. He does this sometimes, he's fine. He was in this little tiny cage sitting in a very, very extremely cold draft. This was the middle of summer, so it was really hot. And he was sitting in an extremely cold, drafty spot. And if you know anything about birds, you know they're really not supposed to be kept in drafts, whether it would be heat or cold. Honey, what you doing? Do you want me to get you? Nope, okay. So he was freezing. And he'd been sitting in that same spot that we'd seen him back in February. So he'd been sitting there for that long, isolated in a draft. And so much so that his cage, like the entire backside of his cage, it was coated in dust, where it was just catching the dust, I guess, from that draft, and it was building up on his cage. He was not cleaned. There was filth everywhere. He had very little water, and what he did have was dirty, very little food. What you doing back there? You're gonna get stuck in the blanket. Okay, I'm gonna have to put him back. I'll come back in a second. Okay, sorry, I had to go put him back. He was getting a little antsy. So anyway, cage was filthy, very little water, and what he did have was dirty, very little food. It was mostly holes. His cage was disgusting. And he was just sitting like puffed out like birds do when they get cold, kind of hunkered over in this back corner of his cage. And for whatever reason, we paid a lot more attention to him this time than we did the first time we saw him. Maybe he wasn't looking quite so unkept at that point. I don't really remember or know the situation of why we didn't pay much attention back in February. My mom was with us, which is a no-no, because when you take my mom to a pet store, you usually end up coming back with an animal. That's how we ended up getting our guinea pig. But I tease her about it. I'm like, I'm never taking you to a pet store again. But we took the time, we noticed him, we saw how he looked. His toenails were so overgrown, he couldn't even grip onto his perch because they were just too long, you know, almost like people that have really long nails and they can't even function. That's how he was. He couldn't even grip on his perch properly because his toenails were so long, and he was just the saddest little thing you've ever seen. So we were standing there all trying to figure out what to do, because I didn't really want another bird. She knew my dad would not agree to getting a bird, and so we were like, what are we gonna do? And I was like, could we share him? Like, you could take him some of the time, we could take him some of the time, you know. The whole time we were there probably a good hour at least, and nobody at the pet store asked us, do we need help? Do we have questions? We actually went and told somebody that worked there, this bird back there needs water. And he's like, oh, I just filled it up this morning. And I was like, oh, I highly doubt that, because it looked like it had been there for a while. And so they did give him some new water, but still nobody asked if we had questions. And long story, sort of not short, we ended up leaving. at that time. We were trying to figure out what to do. My oldest daughter was really concerned that if he had any health issues, it would pass to her bird, you know, her parakeet, which is a valid point. We didn't really know what health condition he was in. He kept doing something weird with his beak, but we, you know, we're not familiar with canaries, so I really didn't know if that was something normally they do or not. But we were gone for a few hours. I really kept thinking about it. I called the vet, tried to find a bird vet because, you know, we had never taken a bird to the vet in a long time. And since I had my bird when I was growing up, and so I was trying to find somebody. I called, and I happened to call this vet that said we actually would do a free initial visit with any bird you buy from this store or this company or this chain of stores. And so I thought, well, that kind of intrigued me because at least I knew if I got him and he had a health issue, I wouldn't have to pay for that initial visit. So I did a little bit of thinking, and I just could not stop thinking about that poor little bird and how sad he looked. And my husband's pretty good about like bringing stuff home. Like, he doesn't get upset about it really. He's used to us bringing home random stuff, you know, like the guinea pig and, you know, snails, you know, stuff like that. He doesn't really care. So I wasn't worried about him. So we went back to the store to buy the bird. And I said, well, you know, they were like, we just really want to get rid of him because the birds in the other cage were picking on him, and that's why he's isolated. And he just had sat there for so long that I'm like, would he not have sold in that amount? That's like at least 6 months time that he's been sitting there isolated. No price tag. Of course nobody's gonna buy him or ask to buy him because you guys are not even, when people are even talking and interested in this bird and, you know, telling you it needs water, nobody tried to sell him to us. Not that I want to have like high pressure sales, but you know, the common thing to do would be to like, oh, do you have questions about this bird? Or are you interested in a bird? You know, something like that. He's like, we just really want to get rid of it. And so because we were not expecting to buy a bird, and he didn't have a price tag, I had no clue how much it was. And I was like, well, how much is he? And he's like, he's $170. And I was like, oh, to not even really want a bird, I was kind of shocked at how much he cost, because when we bought our parakeet, he was like 40 bucks. So I didn't know that canaries apparently cost that much or can cost that much. And I was like, well, can you take anything off the price? And he's like, well, I could knock $20 off, but if I take the $20 off, you cannot bring him back if he is sick. After that, like, you take him to the vet, if they say he's sick, you can't bring him back. So I ended up paying the full price and took him to the vet, and they said that he was fine. They cut his nails, they trimmed his wings and all that stuff, and said that he was fine. So we brought him home, and a few days later, we noticed that he had bugs crawling on him. And I thought, well, that's weird, but maybe it was a bug that was in our house that landed on him. So at this point, though, we were still obviously keeping both birds separate. We were not like handling one and then going and handling the other without washing our hands. So we're being very careful about that. One bird stays upstairs, one bird was staying downstairs, doing everything we could to make sure that if there was something wrong with this bird, this new bird, that my daughter's bird, Tango, would not be exposed to it. So we saw that bug, and it kind of crawled back up inside of Ducky's wing, and I was like, oh, that's weird, but it, you know, maybe just a bug from the house or something. So a few more days went by. I'm trying to remember the order of how everything worked. When we took him to the vet, though, they did not see any bugs on him. So that was really weird, but we kept seeing bugs on him at our house. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, has this like, it's a learning resources zoomy microscope. You hook it up to the computer and you can see, like, I forgot how many times magnified on the computer screen, whatever you're looking at. It's actually a really neat item. I've talked about it before in like gift guides and stuff and homeschooling videos, because it actually is very, very clear and works really, really well to be a kid's microscope. So once I found one of these bugs, like, I couldn't seem to catch one. Like, either it would run back up in his feathers or it would get smushed or something, and I wasn't able to get one to see what it was. Finally, I was able to get one on a piece of tape and looked at it under the magnifying glass thing, and it is disgusting. You could see something moving inside of it. Like, I don't know if it was blood inside the bug or if it was pregnant, I don't know. So we took it back to the vet, and we were like, this bird has obviously had this the entire time, and you guys missed it last time. She's like, oh, we wouldn't have missed that. I'm like, clearly you did. We've only had him for like 3 days. It wasn't something he got here. So I took her actually pictures that we'd taken with that zoomy camera, and I was like, this is what's on him. And she said, do you all have chickens? And I was like, no. Or is he near chickens? I said, no, he's not near any other animals. And she said they are actually chicken lice or chicken bird lice or something like that. It's a type of lice that's not even supposed to be on the type of bird that he is. So we really still do not know how he got that at the pet store, unless it was something that came through the ventilation system. Maybe like there was pigeons or something on the roof that I have no idea how he got these lice when he was isolated in a cage by himself for at least 6 months in a pet store. But he did have them. And we suspected that he had air sac mites, because he would try to sing and he would open his mouth and then it would like, and it was like this like raspy noise. And it was almost like he couldn't sing. But again, they said really there's no surefire way to check for air sac mites there. But the treatment for the lice that he had, that we knew he had, was ivermectin. So if he had air sac mites, the ivermectin would have treated that too. So it was really hard to dose him because he is so tiny, and they had to really like scale down his dose. And she said, give him this and then bring him back in 2 weeks and we'll do another dose. She also had recommended doing 7, like the stuff you use in your gardens, to clean his cage and even to dust on him. And I was really hesitant to do that because that is very potentially harmful to his respiratory system and also ours. So instead of that, I opted to bleach out his cage every single day. He had 2 cages, and we kept a constant rotation of, he'd be in one day and I would bleach the other one, and then the next day we'd put him in that one and we'd bleach that one. This went on for a little bit, and a couple hours after they gave him that first dose of ivermectin, bugs just fell off of him. Like they were all over the bottom of his cage. They were stuck on the perches. And it really blew my mind, because considering they didn't even see any with their own eyes at the vet appointment, and he had that many on him that nobody saw except for the couple that we saw, really was amazing. So that shocked me enough. So that was gross. Luckily, they're not the type of lice that live on people or like people or other animals. So we weren't really worried about that, which is good, because we do have the guinea pig and of course us and Loki and everything else. But it was still really gross that he had those at all, but that many were on him and we didn't even know. And so then that went by 2 weeks. He started perking up. He was like a different bird. He had so much personality. He started to be able to sing, and now there's no shutting him up. He sings like all the time. And but still, in 2 weeks we went back. They dosed him again with another dose of ivermectin, and that seemed to do the trick. We didn't really know if he wasn't singing just because maybe he was a female, and they say female canaries don't sing as much. Or if there was something wrong that was keeping him from being able to sing. The good thing, kind of scary thing potentially about air sac mites, and the good thing about using ivermectin for his lice, was if they have air sac mites, eventually they can suffocate because they can't breathe. And also treating them for air sac mites, if you kill too many of the air sac mites too quickly, they actually die too many at once in their breathing, you know, their esophagus or wherever. And it can actually suffocate them that way. So it was a really scary thing, knowing that he definitely had lice, potentially had air sac mites, and even treating those air sac mites could kill him. The medicine itself could kill him. Like, that was really upsetting, because at this point we were already in love with this little guy, and of course I had spent so much money on him also. And it was so funny that I ended up paying full price just so I could say I could bring him back if he was sick, and I ended up not taking him back anyway, because I just couldn't do that to him. Knowing the life that he had to go back to if we did not keep him was too sad. And so thankfully the ivermectin worked. We have been taking him back to the vet about every month to get his toenails trimmed, because they grow super fast. Tango has never had to have his toenails trimmed. For whatever reason, duckies, I don't know if it's a canary thing, his toenails grow so fast. So we have to take him about every month right now to get his toenails done. And we have been clipping his wings. We don't clip Tango's wings anymore. I don't know if that we're gonna do Ducky's wings forever, but at least in this initial stage where we're still trying to get him more accustomed to being in a home and so many people being around and other animals and stuff, trying to get him more comfortable and used to being handled, because obviously he's been living on a shelf his entire life and not used to being handled. That being said, as you saw, he is so tame, he is so sweet, he is so gentle, he's hilarious, he's so smart, and he doesn't seem to mind. Like, he doesn't really seem to mind being handled. He loves being in his cage. He definitely likes to go back in his cage, but I do still think he enjoys being held, and so we're always kind of taking turns passing him around. But for a little while at least, we're gonna keep his wings clipped until we can kind of figure out, like, is he ever going to be the kind of bird that you could leave out and not fly all over the room? You know, we're still trying to figure that out. So in the meantime, we will get his wings clipped for a little while longer at least. But he is just a joy to have around. And, you know, we were saving his life, but really he's added so much joy to our lives. And I'm so glad that it worked out the way that it did. Not that he had a sad beginning, but that he has such a happy life now. He loves everything, even when he was having to be shifted from one cage to the other, even when he was being given medication and being passed around by doctors. He's just so nice. You can't make him upset. He's like a literal ball of sunshine, and I'm so happy about that, because even though the goal was to save his life, not necessarily to have another best friend that's a pet, it worked out that we did save his life, and he is a best friend that is also a pet. So I'm just really excited. It was a really sad story. I kind of have a feeling that the reason the other birds were picking on him, as the store said, is because they were probably picking the lice off of him. Which probably also means that those birds probably also have lice, because if they were all in the same cage, they're gonna be on other birds too, probably. I don't know. But I was really disgusted with the way the pet store treated him, had him, even if he was being picked on, and even if they had to separate him from other animals, there's no reason why he should have been left in that draft, in that cage, in those filthy conditions with very little food or water, nobody taking care of his toenails. You know, just, it was really sad and inexcusable. And I emailed the company about it, but I never got a response, because clearly they do not care that this is going on in their pet stores. So anyway, happy story for Ducky. He has a very Cinderella story. He is super loved and spoiled now. He's got tons of toys. He sings all day long. He sleeps in my youngest daughter's bedroom, and during the daytime he's downstairs either in the living room or in the office, so he's always with people. He sings all the time, and it's so cute. So we really think that he's a boy because, you know, like I said, girls are usually less vocal, and he is super vocal. So he's brought so much joy to our lives, and I wanted to share his story with you guys. So not to encourage you necessarily to impulse purchase an animal, because that's typically not a good idea. But in this case, I feel like we really had to save his life. I really do feel like we did save his life. I don't know how much longer he could have lived in those conditions. So I'm really happy with how everything turned out. So that's Ducky's story. You saw how cute he is. I'll insert a little clip of him singing right here if you want to get a sample of his little song that we get to hear all day long, even when you're watching TV or trying to take a nap. This is pretty much what we get to hear. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I would love to have you as part of my YouTube channel family, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.